Good afternoon. Today is Monday, April 6th. Shortcut date is 4/6/20. I hope you all had a great week last week and that you're caught up with Tales of Despereaux if you have been interested in that. The agenda for today is Math Story 8.10. We have Jace's Walk, our math workbook, pages 37, 38, 39, and ELA book 40, 41, and 42. So we're going to start off today with Be the Sun, Not the Salt, because we have not read this in a week. And today's lesson, to be honest, is much more catered to adults. So if your parents or guardians are around, bring them in for this part of the lesson because this is very pertinent to both them and Miss Freed as well. So this lesson is called Decide What Matters Most. This is good advice for young parents, young leaders, and even grandparents. But it's also good to remind ourselves of it daily. To pick your battles. Some things may be worth fighting for, arguing about, or even dying for. But most things are not. Be the person who knows the difference. Be the person who can tell what is serious and what is not. Be a person with a long fuse, who thinks things through. If you know what truly matters most to you, you will know how to make better decisions. Do you really need to micromanage employees or your grown kids? Do you really want to get tangled in the gossip of the neighborhood? Do you really want to fight about the crumbs on the counter? Is it really up to you to nip that problem in the bud at that very moment? Ask yourself again and again, does this matter to me? Is it better to walk away? Say nothing, address it another day. These questions are challenging to figure out. Take the time to do it anyway. Your personal and professional relationships are priceless. Honor them. Change your opinions, keep your principles. Change your leaves, keep intact your roots. It's very beautiful. I know that for us adults, especially right now, that honing in on what matters most to us is very important. So with that being said, I just want to quickly address that I know that we are all trying to figure out this new normal and that things are quite different, right? But please remember that this isn't just us that are going through this. This is honestly the whole country and the whole world, and your child is not going to be behind, and the reason why is because I'm not going to let them. So if you can work with me to make sure that we're getting this work done and that you're watching the videos, we are going to go over all of the things that you need in order to be prepared for fourth grade, okay? I also want to shout out, as scary as this time is, there is such an opportunity to learn things beyond just academics. Yes, we have to do our academics and things are so interesting to learn about, but being home will provide you opportunity to learn different things, to connect with your family in a way that you might not have been able to in the past because you're spending so much more time together. So I wanted to shout out a couple of people who have reached out to me, sharing what they're doing. Please send me pictures, email me, let me know what activities you are doing, both in terms of keeping up with the academics and things that you're doing outside of academics. So I want to give a shout out to Siraj. He's been doing all of his work consistently, and he's also been practicing a lot of his basketball outside. Audrey has been experimenting with different hairstyles and has been spending a lot of time with her siblings, which is so awesome. Cody has been keeping up with his work, working really hard, and he is loving Tales of Despereaux and is completely caught up, so that's so awesome. Monica is learning how to cook, so she, over these last few weeks, has become such a better cook, which is so cool to come out of all of this with a new skill. I've seen Sage teaching her younger brother, so working on her teaching skills and also helping out her parents by helping her brother stay organized in his thoughts. Fernanda has been emailing me, sending me so much love, showing me that she's watching the YouTube videos. So Thank you so much. Those are a couple of people who have reached out to me. I'd love to know what else you guys are doing other than the academic work itself. Please know that tomorrow you have Math Story 8.11, graduation party, math pages 40, 41, and 42, and ELA 43, 44, and 45. But of course, I will send an email with all of that information as well. So let's go ahead and dive into the work for today. Please make sure that you have all your materials stacked and ready. You should have your math story. We're going to go over that first, then your math book, and then your ELA book. And please remember that in order moving forward, I need to know that you are doing this work. Obviously, if there are reasons why you might need an extra day or two, I expect you to contact me and let me know. I've already had a few parents do that, so thank you so much. Otherwise, please actually comment, not just like the video, because I can't see who likes it for some reason. So just comment like your first name and that you are done. So like, Jim, done. Okay? Awesome. Go ahead and get out Math Story 8.10. This Math Story was requiring you to draw a number line, so I color-coded this for you because I thought it would be helpful. It says that the distance between Jace's apartment and his school is exactly 1 mile. He buys a snack at a store that is 3/8 miles from his apartment. Draw a number line to show Jace's apartment, his school, and the store. So the first thing I did was in red, where I figured out where his apartment was, and I drew the whole number line all the way to the whole number 1 because the distance is exactly 1 mile. Then, as we've talked about a lot, because I know that I'm breaking this number line into eighths, I can do my landmark fraction, which is 1/2, and then I labeled it in eighths as well to help me stay consistent. So I labeled 4/8 underneath 1/2 here. The next one that I did was the yellow, the highlighted in here. So I had just the 0, 1/2, and 1 whole. Then I broke this down into fourths because I could split my halves in half evenly. So as you can see here, I wrote 1/4, which is equivalent to 2/8, and 3/4, which is equivalent to 6/8. And then lastly, you can see what I did in green. I broke up the rest into eighths themselves, and I was able to break down the whole thing. And eventually it allowed me to see exactly where the store was. So I was able to label the apartment, which is at 0, school, which is at 1 whole, and the store, which is at 3/8. So your paper should have looked similar to mine. Go ahead and get your math book out. I actually wanted to go over review question for a problem that you did over spring break. So if you would, please turn to page 31 first. We're going to go over just that top problem, part A of number 3, because I wanted to remind you of some of that vocabulary, because these words are going to be essential for you to know in 4th grade. So for number 3 on page 31, it should have looked like this. You have 6, 12, 18, 24, and then your next pattern should have been 30, 36, and 42, okay? The question asks which statements are true about the pattern. You should have been able to identify that the pattern was adding by 6 each time, okay? So it then asks in here, we know that the rule is add by 6, that each number is going to be even. And then E, you should have also circled because it says every number in the pattern is a multiple of 3. So I wanted to remind you, we have gone over this, but it was a really long time ago, that multiple means a product result of one number multiplied by another number. So it's asking you, are each of these products a multiple of 3? And the way that we figure that out, remember, pattern is a repeated sequence arranged according to a rule. We know that the rule for this particular pattern is +6. So essentially you're asking yourself, is something multiplied by 3 going to equal each of these numbers? So I wrote down these equations here so that I could identify if something multiplied by 3 were to equal this product. And I know that 2 times 3 equals 6. 6 is a multiple of 3. I know 4 times 3 equals 12. 12 is a multiple of 3. I know 6 times 3 equals 18. 18 is a multiple of 3. I know that 8 times 3 equals 24. 24 is a multiple of 3. I know that 10 times 3 equals 30. 30 is a multiple of 3. I know that 12 times 3 equals 36. 36 is a multiple of 3. And lastly, 14 times 3 equals 42. So I know that 42 is also a multiple of 3. So I just wanted to make sure that you were circling E, you understood the definition of multiple, and you reviewed the definition of pattern as well. Let's go ahead and meet on page 37. This question here asks you, obviously, I filled out the top as a strong mathematician, so I know what number I'm looking for. 6 times something equals 48. I know that I'm looking for the number 8. As I went through, 48 minus something equals 6. I know that this box here would equal 42, so that's incorrect. Both of these options would be impossible. 48 plus something equals a number less than 48. That's impossible. 48 times something equals a number less than 48. That's impossible. My answer is D. 9 times 60 equals 540. I know that 9 times 6 equals 54. I attach a 0 for place value. Your answer for number 11 should be 540. Make sure that you're circling any questions that you got incorrect. And you can either pause the video in the moment, revise it, or you can just go back at the end and fix all of your answers at the end. Page 38 had various models for fractions. I went through and did the equivalencies for all of them, knew that none of these worked, because if I tried to do the numerator and denominator, what I see on the bottom, what I do to the bottom, I must do to the top. It didn't work for any of these, except for when I got to E, and I had 8/8 equals 6/6. I know that both are actually equal to 1 whole, so E is your correct answer. And lastly, this one is always fun. The estimation question, I would have accepted something close to 40 or 37 even. So essentially what it was looking for was before you were going to do the exact math and the exact equation, you could have done like, oh, I know 9 times 3 is 27, 12 is close to 10, 27 plus 10 equals 37, which I know is close to 40, etc. Okay? Does that sound good? Awesome. Part B should equal 39. Part C equals 36. The bottom here is 36 minus 24 minus 10 equals M, and M equals 2. Let me know if you have any specific questions about that. I can go over those with you individually, but I feel like most people should have gotten those questions correct except for the estimation part. So if you are struggling with that, I can go over that with you individually. Take a deep breath, roll your shoulders back, get your ELA book out and open to page 40. I absolutely loved this text. I think that learning about sleep and the brain and how the relationship between the two can coexist is absolutely fascinating. So I'm going to share my jots with you and then we'll go over the answers. So sleep and the brain, I wanted you to notice here that this is called a hook. So when an author starts especially a nonfiction text with a hook, that means that they're trying to get your attention right away. So the author starts with, have you ever stayed up way too late at night? Like, of course, all of us are probably like, oh my gosh, yes, like I have, I can relate to that. You want to read more, it makes it really interesting. So that's a very powerful tool if you're writing a nonfiction text, a nonfiction piece, to start with a question to get your reader engaged. So my first paragraph, my first jot was stay up late equals being tired. After I read paragraph 2, I read that we need sleep and that the brain does not fully turn off, which I thought was really interesting. After paragraph 3, I wrote stages of sleep. I also learned that the brain rests during sleep, but it also can be very active. So I wanted to jot both of those things down. Paragraph 4 was all about REM sleep. I also wrote that REM sleep was a little spooky because it's creepy to think about sleeping at night and our eyes just moving back and forth rapidly. And lastly, paragraph 5, my jot was that there are a ton there's a ton of data to prove that sleep is beneficial. I almost highlighted the whole paragraph here because it was just statement after statement about how great sleep is and what advantages we have from that. My main idea, you should have remembered that a nonfiction text, you're analyzing what did this text teach me about and what is the author's opinion on this topic. So I wrote that the author taught us all about sleep as well as the stages of sleep, and that the author's opinion is that sleep is very important. All right, part A. If a sleeping person is showing rapid eye movement, what else is happening at this stage? So I went back because I know that with my jots that paragraph 4 is all about REM sleep. So I went back to that and I almost got tricked because C says the person's head moves like it's watching a tennis game. And I remember that when I was reading and learning about REM sleep, it talked about movement and that it was like watching a tennis game. However, they specifically said that your eyes move side to side. This question says, or this answer choice, rather says the person's head moves side to side like you're watching a tennis game. When you're in REM sleep, you're not moving your head back and forth, you're moving your eyes back and forth rapidly, right? And they say that in the text, but I almost got tricked. That is a classic M-STEP question, you guys, where they're trying to see who is reading each answer choice carefully and being disciplined. The answer is D. Because I went back and it says the person's eyes move, but the rest of his body or his or her body is perfectly still. And it says that exactly. It says your eyes move quickly from side to side like you're watching a tennis game, but the rest of your body is unable to move at all. Okay? Part B, you should have said B, because that is the only answer choice that incorporates both the idea of the eye movement as well as the body being still. Paragraph 15 required you to write a constructed response. Of course, as we know, there are many different answers that could be considered correct for a writing piece as long as you have enough evidence to support your answer. So I'm just going to share my constructed response with you, and you can see if yours followed along the same lines. So the question that you are supposed to answer says, why does the author think sleep is important? Support your answer with details from the article. So my answer says, the author thinks sleep is important because there is a lot of data to show how it benefits humans' lives. For example, in paragraph 5, the author states, studies show that people who get more deep sleep do better on tests. They remember things better. This proves that the author believes that sleep is essential. So notice how I really made effort to vary up my word choice to make my writing more interesting. So even though I essentially am saying the same thing in my explain as my opening line, I switched the word thinks to believes and important to essential to kind of spice it up a little bit. And the final one, you were putting these in order. The jots honestly helped me answer this question completely. I didn't really have to go back and reread because I was seeing where my jots were in connection with these. So you should have had 3, 1, 2, 5, and 4. So again, remember tomorrow you're doing Math Story 8.11, Math Pages 40, 41, and 42, and ELA 43, 44, and 45. Whew, okay, I did it under 20 minutes, so that is always my goal. Of course, if you have more questions, reach out to me during office hours and I can help you out with that. As always, if this is where you are ending, you can go ahead and get off of this video. If you have been reading Tales of Despereaux with me, which I've learned so many of you are, which makes me so happy, go ahead and get comfy. Find a spot where you're going to be excited to listen. We left on a huge cliffhanger on Friday. So I'm just going to reread page 157 to just spark our memory of where we were. Nothing, said Cook. Good luck to you. You'll be needing it. She watched as Mig descended the dungeon stairs. They were the very same stairs, reader, that the mouse Despereaux had been pushed down the day before. So remember, Meggery So was really just struggling in this role of a servant. She could not do a job correctly. And so the cook was the one that was supposed to be able to handle her. And even she was like, oh, you can't do anything right. So her ultimate and final assignment for Megariso was to deliver food to the prisoners in the dungeon. So she had to walk down to the dungeon, deliver the food, watch them eat it, and then bring the tray back up. They were the very same stairs, reader, the mouse Despero had been pushed down the day before. Unlike the mouse, however, Mig had a light. On the tray with the food, there was a single flickering candle to show her the way. She turned on the stairs and looked back at Cook and smiled. That cauliflower-eared, good-for-nothing fool, said the cook, shaking her head. What's to become of someone who goes into the dungeon smiling, I ask you? Reader, for the answer to Cook's question, you must read on. Chapter 31, A Song in the Dark. The terrible foul odor of the dungeon did not bother Mig. Perhaps this is because sometimes when Uncle was giving her a good clout to the ear, he missed the mark and delivered a good clout to Mig's nose instead. This happened often enough that it interrupted the proper workings of Mig's olfactory senses. And so it was that overwhelming stench of despair and hopelessness and evil was not at all discernible to her. So that means that although there was like a foul smell, she wasn't able to identify it because the damage that has happened, I guess, on her ears has affected her other senses as well. And she went happily down the twisting and turning stairs. Ah, she shouted, it's dark, isn't it? Yes, it is Mig, she answered herself. But if I was a princess, I would be so glittery, light-like, there wouldn't be a place in the world that was dark to me. At this point, Megariso broke into a little song that went something like this. I ain't the Princess P, but someday I will be. The P-ha-he, someday I will be. Mig, as you can imagine, wasn't much of a singer. More of a bellower, really. But in her little song there was, to the rightly turned ear, a certain kind of music. And as Mig went singing down the stairs of the dungeon, there appeared from the shadows a rat wrapped in a cloak of red and wearing a spoon on his head. Yes, yes, whispered the rat, a lovely song. Just the song I have been waiting to hear. And Roscaro quietly fell in step beside Megariso. At the bottom of the stairs, Mig shouted out into the darkness. Oh, it's me, Megariso. Most calls me Mig, delivering your food. Come and get it, Mr. Deep Downs. There was no response. The dungeon was quiet. But it was not quiet in a good way. It was quiet in an ominous way. It was quiet in the way of a small, frightening sounds. There was the snail-like slither of water oozing down the walls, and from a round darkened corner there came the low moan of someone in pain. And then, too, there was the noise of the rats going about their business, the sharp nails hitting the stones of the dungeon, and their long tails dragging behind them. Through the blood and muck. Oh, look, you guys. Reader, if you were standing in the dungeon, you could certainly hear all of these disturbing and ominous sounds. If I were standing in the dungeon, I would hear these sounds. If we were standing together in the dungeon, we would hear these sounds and we would be very frightened. We would cling to each other in fear. But what did Megariso hear? That's right, absolutely nothing. And so she was not afraid at all, not in the least. She held the tray up higher and the candle shed its weak light on the towering pile of spoons and bowls and kettles. Oh, said Mig, look at them things. I ain't never imagined there could be so many spoons in the whole wide world. There's more to this world than anyone could imagine, said a booming voice from the darkness. True, true, whispered Roscaro. The old jailer speaks true. "Ugh," said Mig. "Who said that?" She turned in the direction of the jailer's voice. Bum, bum. All right. So happy to be making these videos again with you. I've loved all the positive feedback. So many people have said that they've enjoyed them and that they've been really helpful. If there's anything else that I can do or anything different that I can do to help support you, please let me know. Please continue to also read something that you love for 30 minutes a day. Also, please practice math facts. Remember, you can always Google Math Monster Playground. That's a great resource to help you practice. And do something fun and different. Learn something new. I love that Monica is learning how to cook. I'm definitely going to take a little dance class today. As you guys know, I love dancing, but I don't really know how. So I'm going to spend my time doing that. Remember that these are scary times, but these are also beautiful opportunities to connect and learn in different ways. All right, I miss you all so much. I'll be on my computer from 4 to 5 during my office hours if you have questions.